Happy Canada Day. Today is the day in which we Americans celebrate our second favorite country. On this day, in 1867, Canada became organized as a dominion under the British Crown, achieving independence from the United Kingdom. Now, when most people think of Canada, they think of hockey, they think of poutine, they think of John Candy. But I want to talk to you about somebody important, somebody who I have long admired, and it's Canada's greatest politician. Now, some people will tell you that Canada's greatest politician was Tommy Douglas, who was the inventor and founder of Medicare. In fact, Canada allowed him to be named the greatest Canadian of all time. But I'm here to talk to you about somebody else, the Right Honorable John Diefenbaker. Now, the Right Honorable John Diefenbaker was from Saskatchewan, originally born in Ontario, but was raised in Saskatchewan, and he was Prime Minister of Canada from 1958 to 1963. During that time period, he was also the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party, as it was called. Now, the Prime Minister, Mr. Diefenbaker, had a very interesting career. He was a lawyer in private practice in Saskatchewan. He joined the Conservative Party. He came out as a conservative during his career, and he wound up being very involved in conservative politics in Saskatchewan. Now, what you may not realize is at the time, the Conservative Party in Saskatchewan was moribund, to say the least. He was a perpetual loser on the stump. He was somebody who would best be described as a perennial candidate. He had 2 runs for Parliament. He lost them both. He ran for the Legislative Assembly of Saskatchewan, their local parliament, twice. Lost them both. Ran for mayor of Prince Albert, his hometown in Saskatchewan. Lost that race. He was the chairman of the Saskatchewan Conservative Party, led them to multiple defeats. It wasn't until 1940 that Diefenbaker finally won an election in which he was elected to Parliament. He served the rest of his life for 39 years in Parliament. Twice, Diefenbaker ran for and lost the leadership post for the Conservative Party of Canada, the Progressive Conservatives. On his 3rd try, he was elected as the leader of the Conservative Party, basically because the rest of the Conservative Party members said, there's nobody left. Let's go with what Diefenbaker is pushing. And he wound up being the only progressive conservative prime minister in a 40-plus year stretch in Canada. Now, I admire John Diefenbaker for a lot of reasons. One, his gruff personality and his ability to piss off many people reminds me a little bit of myself. But John Diefenbaker was a Canadian patriot. He was a champion of liberty. He was somebody who provided the vote, for example, to the First Nations people, the Native Americans in Canada for the first time. He was the author, the creator of the Canadian Bill of Rights. He was a champion of individual liberty. Now, his politics are not what you would necessarily conjive with what you would call conservative politics these days. But he believed in liberty, and he believed in the Canadian cause, and he loved his country. The other thing I admire about Diefenbaker is that he never gave up. He fought. For 30 years it almost took him to become Prime Minister of Canada and to get the Progressive Conservative Party to follow his leadership style and to follow his leadership agenda. And that, I think, is the lesson for all of us who are involved in politics these days. Especially if you're like me and you're an actual conservative who identifies as a conservative, who may disagree with the leftward bend of the Republican Party in these times. There will be a time for us. Our time will come. It is our responsibility as conservatives and our duty as Americans to continue to fight for what we believe, to continue to fight for liberty, for freedom, for the pursuit of happiness, and for the small government principles that we have always fought for. While our politics may not necessarily jive with those of the Right Honorable John Diefenbaker, there is something for all of us to learn from his example of stick-to-itiveness and for the way he championed Canadian patriotism, Canadian liberty, and one Canada for all Canadians. I encourage you to study John Diefenbaker and see what other examples you can learn from his tremendous life and his tremendous legacy.
This has been the Duckpin Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and download